Hello, welcome to this Plecto webinar. We're just going to take a few minutes to let people arrive, but you are very, very welcome. I'm Katie. I will be your host this evening. And then the very wonderful man with me is Wagner, who's one of our Plecto experts. He is here to help me, and also in case you have any particularly hard questions, he knows everything. He is my giant Plecto brain in the office. Yep, we'll just wait a few minutes while everyone is joining. Great, lots of different people today. Fantastic. So I suppose we sent around the meeting agenda, but I will just talk to you a little bit about the session we have today. So it's very much a getting started. So kind of the going through step by step how you set up your Plecto account, and then kind of showing you a couple of tricks, a couple of different things that we have in Plecto to make things easier for you, or different ways to motivate your team. And then we will have time at the end of the session for questions. You can send them throughout, but we will come back to them at the end of the session. And we have a good bit of time for that, so don't worry about that at all. Yeah. I'll just give it another 2 minutes to see if anyone else is joining. Yeah, but thank you all so much for your time today and joining us on this webinar. I'm excited to show you everything Plecto, well, the beginnings of what Plecto can do. We will be having other webinars kind of to go through kind of our gamification features and the different aspects of Plecto. So kind of everything that you can add on top, but this is very much the foundation of how to get set up with Plecto and kind of get those results as quickly as possible for getting the potential of your team up. Part of me really wants to do some hold music, like la la la, but I won't make you all listen to me. But I appreciate your support, your silent support. Great. So I think we can get started as well. Just so you're aware, the recording of this session will be sent to everyone here, but also anybody who signed up. So if you have colleagues that you invited and they're not here, they will be able to watch it. It'll be tomorrow afternoon when that is sent out. So you're very welcome. I have a fabulous slideshow, but I will just share my screen with you. There we go. So getting started with Plecto refresher training. If anyone has any issues doing that, please pop them in the chat. But you should see my webinar slideshow here. So as I said, this is very much starting from the beginning, the foundations of Plecto, how to get set up, and kind of to walk through kind of any questions you might have about that, and show you how you get set up for success with your first motivational dashboard. There we go. It's me, head of the customer service and success team. So I'll be leading the webinar. Talking through this is my day-to-day, so it should go well. But just in case, we have the lovely Wagner, in case you ask any difficult questions, or just in general to kind of help along. He's laughing, but it's true. So yeah, we're your hosts for today. So this is very much the agenda. So we're going to go through from the very beginning. You've got your Plecto account. How do we connect your data? Like the grand tour, I like to call it, of the formula builder. So all the different things you can do with the calculations in Plecto. We're going to talk through setting targets. There's a few different ways you can add targets to Plecto, and I'll talk through why we encourage you to add targets for all the activities for your employees. We'll build our first dashboard. So that's our first motivational dashboard, and talk about how we can use those KPIs to create a data-driven culture where everyone has the chance to celebrate themselves and each other. And then we're also going to have a look at our all-new dashboard builder, which is designed to make the setting up of the dashboard easier for anyone, but especially new users of Plecto or people who aren't so used to setting up the different KPIs. And then, as I said, at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. You are welcome to send those questions throughout. Wagner will be collecting them, but we will have time at the very end to go through all of that. So don't worry if there's anything that's unclear. So let's get started. So this is my webinar Plecto account, so kind of starting from scratch. So when connecting your data sources, you'll come into this page in Plecto, and that's the home page, and then we'll go to the data sources. So the more data we can get into Plecto, the more fun we're going to be able to have, the more we're going to be able to do. So over here in the top right-hand corner, we have a new data source, and we're going to connect. So these are all of our integrations. We have a lot. I would recommend having a look at our integration list, which we can share with you in the follow-up email after this webinar, to see all the different systems that we have. This is something that we're adding to all the time, and Plecto is very good at connecting with other systems. So if you have a system where you think, God, it'd be brilliant if Plecto could connect to this, please let us know. We can absolutely investigate if it's possible and see if that's something our developers can implement. But for now, for today's session, I have a Pipedrive account. So just to show you how to set these up. So here, there's already credentials in this account, but just to show you, there's add new credentials. It'll ask me to connect to my Pipedrive account, and then I have some test credentials very helpfully put somewhere. Ooh, I have a sticky note. Let me just find that. Stuff. There we go. So this is literally just your username and password. If you are using, say, for example, sometimes it'll ask for, say, an API token or particular kind of user. If that happens, we have integration guides in our help center, which will take you through that step by step. So in here, let's say, for example, you're adding Adversus, just type that in, and here will be a step-by-step guide on how to access that information and get that into your Plecto. So here it's just asking for permission. So this is basically you in Pipedrive saying Plecto can have access to all of this information. Continue. And then here I'll choose what I want to import. Now you can always come back and add more data later. This isn't a once-off. You can just use the same process there and choose something else. So here we'll do deals and activities. Here, this is just choosing the different fields that are available. These are all the fields that are available to be imported directly from Pipedrive. So here, this is very manageable in Salesforce. There can be a lot. So maybe think about what data is important and what you want to import into Plecto. But if in doubt, you can import all that information by ticking the additional boxes. Here, the employee field, this can be quite important just in the sense of when you're looking at, say, for example, a deal, you might have deal setters, you might have deal owners, and you might have people who close the deal. So who do you want this to be assigned to? What employee do you want to count it based on? And like that, if you're looking at it, say you want to know how many sales are set up by Matthew, who's a setter, but also closed by Wagner, who's a closer. They're the same deals, but depending on how we look at them, they belong to different employees. So you can make two data sources where you can import different employees. So you can count those effectively. That's jumping a little more complex, but just so you know, those options are available. Then we'll click next once we're happy with everything we have chosen. And here we'll decide on the date we import from. This is test data, so I know that it is from July. So I'm going to set it all the way back here. And then we're going to import that directly to Plecto. And it's just going to take a minute. I think this is because I already have data in Plecto from Pipedrive, which is in here. Oh, there we go. So then that data will start to import right away. Just check that we have that correctly imported. That looks okay. So this is if there's ever an error, you can come into the data source and look in the logs and see, are there any errors? This one doesn't have any errors, so I'm just going to go back a little bit more and make sure we get that data.
Katie, I think you're in the interview organization.
That'd be why. Whoops.
Yeah, perfect.
Sorry, everyone.
Nice.
That makes more sense. Perfect. So then we'll add Pipedrive again, just like we did before. Save credentials, activities, and deals. See, this is why I have Wagner. He fixes things. Boom, 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 boom. And then I want to go back to July again. It's just choosing all the data that we want. And then that will just take a moment. Do you know what this error is relating to, Wagner? Sorry.
Let me check it.
So it looks like it's importing. So you can see over here it says real-time with webhooks, manual data in process. It wouldn't be a webinar without some technical difficulties. But while I'm here, I'll also just import our Google Sheets data. while Wagner's figuring that out. So this is more relevant for when we're looking at targets. So there's a few different ways to add targets, and one way is using our Google Sheets or Excel integration. And this is a way you can add any kind of data directly from Google Sheets or Excel. So like that, again, if you have a system that doesn't directly connect with Plecto, if you can export it into a CSV file, then it can be imported through Excel or Google Sheets automatically. So one thing that's really, well, there's two things that are very, very important. When you're setting up this data, the date field is really, really important. This is usually, if it's not working, it comes down to this date field not being formatted exactly like this. So we need to go year, month, day, hour, minute, second. And that's so Plecto knows exactly how to count the data. So when we set a time period, it knows how. Also really, really important to have the employee email if you want that data to be associated with a particular employee, which 9 times out of 10 we do. If you do not want to associate it with an employee, you don't need to have this here, and it will just be attributed to a Google Sheets user or Google Sheets employee. So we'll just add that. And again, just like the Pipedrive one, but this one will work. We'll just connect. So it's going to connect directly to my Google Sheets account. We're Google people in Plecto, but the Excel one works essentially the same way. Then allow it, giving it access. And then we'll just test. There we go. That's this one. I only have one sheet in this spreadsheet. If there's multiple sheets, it'll import each of them as a separate data source. You'll be able to import as much information as you want. Here, again, if you want it to be attributed to an employee, it's important in the employee field to choose the email so that it will create a user based on those employees. And then that data will be associated with that person. If that person already exists in your Plecto, the email address is how it will associate the information with the relevant employee. Down here, again, you can add as many fields as you want. Once you have that date field and the employee field filled in, you can choose as much data as you want or fill in as much data as you want in the sheet, and then that'll be automatically connected to Plecto. Next. I'll just take a moment. Let's see my data. And then you'll see Plecto will put it in these neat little folders. Really, really recommend keeping your data and your formulas organized because at the beginning it's like, great, fantastic, I know what that is. But very quickly you have too many formulas with very similar names, different people making different things. So by keeping folders, you kind of stay on top of it and it doesn't go a bit crazy. And we have folders in the data sources and in the formulas section so that you can keep everything nice and tidy. If we look in here, so this is the data that I just imported. So I have the employees that I set up here. This is the value of their targets. These are the deal names. So, and then here are the date fields. So that is how that works. So nice and easy.
Pipedrive is back working as well.
Yay, great news. Is it in, yay, fantastic. There's all our lovely data being imported. Thank you, Wagner. So once we have the data, that's the foundation. That's where we start with Plecto. The next step is to go into the formula. So the formula is how we tell the data what we want it to do. And this is not the most fun part, but it's probably the most important part because this is where we're deciding how to use the information. So for example, we'll do number of won deals for our Pipedrive data. So this is the visual editor. I like this. It's very friendly. It's very easy to set up different calculations. There is an advanced editor, which is probably a little bit closer to Excel, if that's what you're more comfortable with. I don't like that, but we'll look at it a little bit later. But I like to live in the visual editor, and we can do most things from there. Here, we'll choose a new component. So that's the first part of what do we want to calculate. Here, 9 times out of 10, we're going to be using the data function. If you're ever unsure about anything here, you can hover over this and it will tell you what does this function do. Also click here in the data source. So then we use Pipedrive deals. And then we want to know the number of deals. And then this is very important with the date field because what will happen is we want to create the formula so it's as universal as possible. And that's so we can use it in as many ways. We want to look at the number of won deals today, this month, this week, this year. Do we want to use it in our notifications? So we want to keep this as universal as possible. And then in the dashboard, we'll set what time period we're measuring. And if we're counting the number of won deals based on the date they were created versus the date they were won, we're going to get very different figures. So if I created a deal in January, but it doesn't close until March, when is it important that that is counted, and it is when the money is coming into my bank account. So this, usually if your data is a little off or the numbers don't look quite right, it often comes down to the date field. So in this case, deal closed on is probably the best one to go with. But like that, depending on what you're trying to measure, there'll be different date fields to consider. But you can always just click here, and these are the date fields that are available within that data source. You can just choose the one that's going to be most relevant. We also need to add a filter because at the moment it's just looking at the total number of Pipedrive deals. So we want to find the Pipedrive deals that are won. So it's usually status or type. You'll know your data better. And then like this, because it's a list function within Pipedrive, I can just choose one. So that's a drop down. If it's not a list function, sometimes it's a free text, I think. Stage. Here, this needs to be exactly the same as it is in the data source. So the best thing to do is to click this box. This will take you directly to the data you're using. So that's Pipedrive. Fill in here. And we're going to copy it directly from the data source. Oh, there's no data. Interesting. Oh, no, there is. It's because there's a filter. Oh, okay, great. In here, you'll see Plecto will show you automatically the first 10 fields within your data source. But if there's more, they appear over here, and you can make them visible by clicking this eye. So we can see that status, and then we were looking at stage. So in this case, I want to know contact made, password qualified. So in this case, none of these seem to be. So here we go. Let's go negotiations. Started or proposal made. So I'm going to copy that directly. And then that would go in this text field. So that's the best way to make sure that that's going to be read correctly by Plecto. But in this case, we have a nice and straightforward status is 1. And then we're going to click save. Over here on the left-hand side, we have a preview. And this is just to give you an idea of if your calculation is on the right track. This doesn't affect the formula calculation. And then particularly down here, it says the time interval. It's just to give you an idea of is it working correctly? It doesn't affect the formula at all. So just to be aware of that. And then down here, we have the number format. So this is important if you are trying to get a format that's different from a number. So by default, we're usually counting deals or value. But if you wanted it to be text, yes or no, percentage, duration, we're talking average stock time, that's where this changes in the formula. But we'll come back to that. So then we have our first formula. Wahey! So then we're going to go straight to the dashboard. So we'll use the empty dashboard first, and we'll come back to our very fancy new dashboard builder. So let's call this webinar dashboard. Then there's a couple of different themes that you can choose from if you like, but I like our dark blue, Plecto Classic. We click save. Then we can do it. So you kind of get this screen here. So you can add a widget by clicking here or up here in the top right-hand corner. And these are the widgets we have to choose from. We'll go through these and what's going to be the most relevant for you and your team, but just to be aware of all these different options. So number box speedometer, that's generally how are we doing and where do we want to go? So by comparing where are we now with where do we want to go, that's where the targets will come in again. And then we'll spend a lot of time on tables because the tables are fantastic. We also have these fun widgets down here. So kind of custom text, images, a countdown, or clock. So just to keep an open mind on that, that if you want to add, branding, kind of a lot of companies spend a lot of money on lovely visuals. Putting that into your Plecto boards can be really, really great for kind of injecting your culture into a dashboard. So let's start with a number box, nice and simple. And we'll go number of won deals. Now, I know that our test data is from July, so I'm just going to choose all time for the purposes of this. So we can see there are 6 won deals. So this is where in here, I've chosen the formula that we already made. Then in the time period, I can choose current year, current week, current month, quarter, previous, current week, month, quarter, next. There's a lot of options in here. I'd recommend having a look through this to kind of see if you're looking at particular periods, if you have a particular financial year, this is where you can set those specific time periods. And the time period that you are measuring is always available down here. So you know exactly what you're looking at. Then we'll click apply, great. And that's it, that's the number of won deals. Then if we wanted to use the same formula, but look at it, or we can build formulas directly from the dashboard as well. So we'll just build another one. I've just copied this directly because I like how this looks, but I want to use it for a different formula. So we can build formulas directly from the dashboard as well here by clicking New Formula, and then value of one deal. So very similar to what we just did, but we're looking at the revenue value. Then we're going to use the same data source, deals. Instead of number of, we're going to use sum of. So these are the different functions that are available in our formula editor. So we have number of, and again, we have this lovely little I. If you're unsure what you're looking at, you can click, there's like a brief explanation here, or you can click on this, see example, and it will show you a little example of what it is we're looking for. So in this case, number of is counting 1, 2, 3. But in this case, we want to look at sum of. So what is the total amount we have? So again, the Plecto will automatically show you all of the number fields that are available within that data source, and then you can choose from the most relevant. We also want to add a filter again. So we only want to know the closed deals or the won deals, because that's money that is on its way to our bank account, which we love. And you'll see, because I copied this first widget, the time period is already set at all time. It will by default when you make a new one, start it today, but you can always change it by clicking here, or you can copy the widgets just to save a bit of time. Then the date field again. So we want the deal closed on. Again, we're looking at all time, but if it was a case of we're looking at current month, we want to know how much revenue can we expect that month from our won deals. And then we'll click Save Widget. From here as well, within this widget, we have these conditional colors, which are very fun. So you can add them in here if there's a specific number, or I like to use these ones because we can look at it as a percentage of a target. So for example, if we know, so this is our actual value, what we're calculating, then we can also have a target value. So just for simplicity, I'm going to use a static number, which is here. And then I'm going to make this 40,000. So there we go. So already this is where we are, and this is where we want to be. So click Save. Then we can use those conditional colors, and automatically Plecto will look at what percentage of the target have we achieved. So we want to start at 0. Oops, 0. For red, then if we get to 50%, we want to go orange. And if we're hitting 80%, we want to go green. And that way I come in, I look up at my boards, and right away I can see 3 things are green, 2 things are red, and 1 thing is yellow. So where do I need to focus my attention? So we always want to be thinking about, okay, we're giving this information to our team, but how are we helping them make their job easier? How are we helping them to reach their full potential? I also love this because we can make the background colors the conditional colors. So it's like color pop, impossible to ignore, especially if it is red. So that's just something to be aware of. So then we tend to, when we look at a dashboard, between 5 and 7 widgets is best practice. And we tend to read a screen in this kind of circular motion. So we want the most important data over here and kind of work that way. So if we put this one over here, number of won deals, also have very fun, the leaderboard, which is one of my favorites. And again, we're using the same value of won deal, so the formula that we just created, and we are using it in a different way. So it's going to break it down by employee. The leaderboard always breaks the information that we're calculating down by employee. And then we are, deals. So we can add, you can customize these as well. We also, very fun, support emojis. So I like the bag of money for these ones usually. Deal. So kind of, again, just to give it a bit of color pop, give it a bit more personality. It, of course, depends on your culture, but it can kind of just make things a bit more fun within the office. In this case as well, I would personally like to have a top 3. So you have bronze, silver, gold, and we pop that in there. And those are our top 3 salespeople for this month or this year or whatever it is that's going to be relevant to you, depending on your sales cycle. So we can also add a summary heading here if you want to see the total. That will appear in the top right-hand corner. But I like it to just be people's shining faces. And this is, I would always encourage everyone to add profile pictures to their employee profile in Plecto, because then you get this kind of lovely effect when people are coming up on the screen. And again, giving us all the opportunity to celebrate each other and our different successes. The next widget we're going to talk about, which is also a favorite of mine, is the table widget. So let's look at this. So employee sale, let's just do sales numbers. And again, just to be aware, you can hide these if you want. You can obviously put in whatever label, but if you don't want a label, you can get rid of it by clicking that I, and same with this information here. I like to have that information available so I know exactly what I'm looking at, but it depends what's going to help your team. That's why getting more people involved with Plecto, and particularly team managers, they tend to know because they're on the floor doing the work, what's going to work best or what's going to be the most helpful. So I'm just setting these settings first, but you can do that afterwards. And the first thing we're going to do is add a column. So let's do number of won deals again. So we're using the same formulas all the time, but we're getting very different results and very different breakdowns. And that's again why we're trying to keep the formulas as universal as possible so we can use them everywhere, save ourselves a bit of time, but also get that rich data by setting the settings on the dashboard instead. So here we go. This is our pipe drive data. So from here, we've added our data. The table will by default always group by the employee, but you can always change this. So that's what's most fun about the table is you can break down the information by any custom field within that data source. But in this case, we're looking at employee sales, so it makes the most sense to stick there. You can also sort this information. So at the moment, I'm seeing a lot of zeros, but then, oh, there's a 1, there's a 4. I want to see who's selling what, so I'm going to sort it this way. And then I can see who's making sales. I can also hide the rows with 0 or negative values so that I'm only seeing the salespeople who have made sales that month. So that can be good if you have a large team in Plecto and you only want to look at the people who are actually making sales, or you can also make a team if that's another way to filter. We'll talk about that in a moment. So looking at number of won deal. So, and this is what can be great about the table is that you can put a lot of information together and look at the effectiveness of the individual employee. So let's go with value of won deals to add some more information. See, there you go, for the same time period. So here we're seeing, okay, David has 4 deals at 21.27, Anna has 1 deal, and Karen has 1 deal. But Anna's deal is bringing in a lot more income than Karen's deal. So what's going on there? What's working, what isn't working? And this is where we can have a look at our activities. So kind of looking at how effective are we with our resources. So it's great to look at how many deals are we winning, how much income is coming into the business, and depending on who is closing it, but also how much work are we putting in to then close these deals. So we're going to look at another formula. We're going to call this number of activities, which is the other data we imported from Pipedrive. Go. And then we want to look at the number of activities per employee. And then we can see, gosh, everyone's doing great. So you can kind of drag these around as well. And then you'll see David's done 6 activities. He's won 4 deals. So that's got to be a great conversion rate in terms of activities to won deals. What we can do as well is look at that conversion rate. So again, we're thinking transparency. What are we sharing with our team? What can we show them that will help them do their jobs better? It's very easy for me to look at Wagner and be like, God, he's so brilliant. He's closed this many deals. He's doing so well. But actually, if he's closing 3 deals and doing 10 activities, but I'm closing 4 deals and I'm only doing 3 activities, I'm actually doing much better and using my time more wisely. So by kind of digging into this data and looking at the results of the won revenue, won deals, but also looking at the activities that make up that one deal can give really rich insights into your data. So activities to one deal conversion. And then here we're going to go into the formula editor. So here I know I want to add 2 components. So this is great when you're doing a simple sum of number of something like that. But if we want to add multiple components, to deal conversion, it's easier to do it in the formula editor. It kind of makes me feel like I have more space, which makes me sound a little bit insane, but that's okay. We've already created these formulas. So the mantra behind Plecto is work smart, not hard. We've already made our total activities. So, oops. One, and then we have our number of won deals. And then down here on the number format, we want to make it a percentage. And then here, we're going to change the plus to a division. So we want to look at the number of deals. Like that, I tend to get confused. So I will look at I will put them in the wrong place. So I just swap them around. If I'm unsure, I ask Wagner. Or of course, you could always reach out to our wonderful support team to figure that out. So then we click save, and that will appear in our table. And there we go. We have those conversion rates of activities to deals. So again, kind of looking at the effectiveness of each of our employees and finding out, does it make sense? Is it working? But yeah, so like that, we want to kind of be very transparent, give each other chances to celebrate each other, but also to learn from each other. So David Howard is doing a great job and he has a really high conversion rate. What can Karen learn from David? Or what can we do to look at how David is progressing versus Karen? And kind of how do we encourage and help each other along? But I think as well, no one wants to be last. Everyone, it can be easy to be like, oh, they're just a better salesperson. But when you dig into that data, we can see that there's actually a reason why David is performing better. Then just to kind of talk about these other widgets. So the column chart can be a great one for a kind of another way to visualize how different sales performance is going. So let's do sales performance. And then, so again, we're looking at very similar data, but just looking at how it can help us make different insights based on the information we have. And if we go in here, we can see our 3 lovely salespeople. We can hide the empty columns that we see here. And then you get this kind of, it's a little bit more of a competitive way to look at things, particularly if you have teams that are going head on head. The column chart can be great. Or if you're selling a number of different product categories, you can use that stacks to stack this in a way that you can see how much is everybody selling of each product. And that can be very, very effective. There's also a few settings in here, so you can show those column values. So you can see 1, 4, 1, and then you have a total in the top right-hand side, if that's going to be relevant for you. So there we have our first motivational dashboard. As you can see, I have 5 total widgets. I've used some color conditioning. I've used very similar formulas, but at the same time, we're getting different data from each of the widgets that we're using. So I'm now going to take you back to our dashboard builder. So this is something our wonderful product team have come up with to make this easier for you. We, of course, want to guide you and help you in Plecto, but sometimes you just want to get started and get that data. You don't know where to start. So that is where our wonderful dashboard builder comes in. So we have the dashboard builder here. So it's just in the dashboard screen, and then we know we're using Pipedrive. So Pipedrive is already connected. You can do this as a brand new user using the dashboard and then connect your data sources by choosing them from this list, or you can click here. This is currently only available for some of our integrations, but it's best to just have a look at the list and see if yours is one of them. And then here it will bring you to these typical, so like using the data that you have, what KPIs can we put in the dashboard builder? In this case, number of won deals, value of won deals, number of activities. So that's what's going to make the most sense considering the data that we have. We also have these templates. So if we want to know average won deal size, let's see what else that we'd like. We do number of new deals created. So again, we have a lot of options here. These are the typical KPIs that are going to be relevant to people. It's also a really good starting point. Sometimes it's easier to set up a dashboard and then work backwards and then say, oh, I don't like that, or I'd like to move this over here. Then we have this lovely generate dashboard. And then that will make our dashboard here. So this is using sample data. This is just to give you an idea of what it would look like. Does this make sense for you and what you want your dashboard to look? And then you will connect your data. So there we have Pipedrive, and it will connect, and it will update all that example information with my information, which is great. So here, again, just to be aware, so say like here, it's automatically gone for current month, but I know my data is from a few months ago. So I will just change that to all time. And then, so just if something doesn't quite look correct, just have a look at those settings, because sometimes it's as simple as the time period or maybe a date field as well. That might not be correct. So then also just to bring your attention to we go back to the formula editor. So of course, this is fantastic. We're walking through it together, but what happens if you're in the middle of this and you don't really know what to do next, or something isn't quite working? We do have our fabulous astronaut Astro, who is our AI helper. So you can always ask him questions, or you can click this question mark and you can see all the relevant articles from our help guide. So this is condensed to what's probably going to be the most helpful for you while you're in the screen. And then you can always contact us by clicking here. We are available on live chat and by email at support@plecto.com. Whenever you need help. So you can see all the details here, and then you can send us in. So just to be aware that that is always there for you. Then I think I might just show you the month to date target because this is very, very cool. And we might just set up in my webinar dashboard. What we'll do, you'll see it's very easy to chop and change. If you want to move something, or maybe this has become less relevant, we're not using that much space, we can move these things around. And then I like them to line up with the squares. I also know Wagner likes to line them up with the squares, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But let's just have a look at a month to date target. So looking over here, we have the value of 1 deals. So we'll just do, actually we can copy that by going here and go here. So then we have exactly the same thing, but I'm gonna change this the target value. So at the moment we just have a static number, and we're gonna remove that and we're gonna make a formula. And again, we're gonna go to the formula editor, expanding, and we're gonna go month to date target. For our target, we're gonna say it's 40,000. And then I'm going to use a new component, and this time we're going to use the date function because what I want to know is, it's the 25th of November. I want to achieve 40,000 by the end of November. What do I need to have achieved today to make sure I'm on track for that target? For that, we will use the date function. And by default, it will say number of work days from the widget start date to the widget end date. That's if we're looking at the current month or at 1 month. It's going to divide that number 40,000 by the number of days in a month. So we're just going to change this to divided, and then we're going to multiply that. So using another date function, we're going to use the same thing, but change the end date to today. So how many days up until now should I have achieved? So multiplication, and then we'll click save. And then here, because I'm using all time, so we're going to use fixed time period and go back to July because I know that's when our data is from. Go. Save. Maybe our data's from another time. Here. Here. Anyway, so looking at all time. So it does need to be in the current month. You can see by me having a bit of weird data, test data, that's not quite working the way we want. But when we're looking at current month data, it will break that down. So like that, when you come in on the 1st of December, oh my God, that was December. When you come in on the 1st of December, it's not red the entire time. If you're looking at this and your team is looking at this the whole time, that can be very demotivating, but they can see day by day, are they hitting the targets that they need to hit to be able to reach their goals. It also, by being very transparent with those targets and adding in that information, you can have an open dialogue of, do the targets make sense? Do they make sense for everybody to have the same target? Should we all have different targets? Or are they realistic? Do we need to take another look at those? So I think that is everything I wanted to cover today. Am I missing anything, Wagner? A wonderful, all-knowing Wagner.
No, everything's perfect.
Okay, great. Maybe we'll see if there are any questions that came up during that.
Yes, we have one question. Should I read it?
Yeah.
Yes, regarding the table widget, can I split the data by 2 dimensions? Example, employee and industry.
You could have to make 2 separate tables, but what you could do is add, say, for example, a column here. And one of the data functions is, I know I have deal name. So we'll just use that for example, but it's a text field. And then what I would create is a formula. And then deal name. Drive deals. And then just here for the output format, you would change that from decimal number to text. And then for here, we would want to use first or last for a text field. And then it's a deal. Name. There we go. And then that'll return text. But otherwise, if you wanted to look at, you can group them in 2 separate tables, but if you want the information in the same place in terms of what industry is attached to what person, you would This would group them in a way that would show the last industry that a person has sold to. But if you want to see a list, you can use a timeline where the setup is exactly the same, but it will list every single sale or one deal that's gone through.
And
Does that make
perhaps
sense?
the column chart as well, because in the column chart, you can group based on one KPI, on one field, and stack by another field. So you would group based
Yes.
on employee and stack by industry.
Yeah. Or the pie chart or the donut chart. I like the donut
Yes.
chart. So if you wanted to, I don't know, I'll just do activities actually to show you an example of this. I really like the donut chart. I think it's a really good visual to kind of break down information. So like this, very similar. So we'll do the activities because I know there's a field we can use. Activities. And then in settings, you can group by, but I can change this to type, which will show me how much each kind of activity is happening. So you could break that down by industry to show kind of the percentage and get a summary of how much activity is happening in each industry. Great. Are there any other questions?
No?
Okay. Great. Well, thank you everyone so much for your time. As I said, this recording will be sent out to you
So,
tomorrow afternoon. Oh, sorry.
yes, we have one last question.
Okay.
Can I create a dashboard using dashboard builder function with the data come from an API call? Oh, that's interesting question.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually.
Yes.
We should try. We will find
Yeah.
out is the answer I have for that question.
Yes. Maybe Jack will shoot us an email, then we can investigate it for you. I'll just
Yeah,
write my email here.
perfect. Well, if that's all, you are, of course, welcome to reach out with any questions whatsoever to support@plecto.com, or you can catch us on live chat. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I hope that was helpful, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.
Thanks
Thanks,
a lot.
Wagner.
Bye bye.